So I recently came out with a druid build that was based around immobilization and bleeding. Now I've come out with a new build that is kind of similar to that, but for Soulbeast, and it revolves around poison instead of bleeding. So that was called the botanist because it revolved around plants and stuff like that. This is more about poisonous animals. I present to you the Toxicologist. That's right, because this is a poison damage dealing Soul Beast build. So the build is using Sage Amulet. I feel like Sage's is pretty good. You need healing power on Rangers because a lot of their builds require sustain, and they have pretty good healing power coefficients because a lot of their skills give regen, as you'll see, and you'll get healing from having protection as well as just a lot of other sustain. So I like Sages. You can go with Carrion if you really want more damage, but I like to have a little bit more of a 1v1 role with this build, so I take that. But there is decent team fighting capability with this build, as you'll see later. So I take Rune of Ore. Rune of Ore basically gives you 10% extra maximum health. With Sage's Amulet, I get a pretty decent amount of health, but mostly I want the condition damage duration reduction because this build, unlike basically every other ranger build in the game, does not use wilderness knowledge. Even though wilderness survival is basically mandatory because of the protection and the sustain it gives you. Yeah, this build is using the Poison Master trait because that's kind of the whole point of the build. So you get 25% damage increase on your poison, which, basically most of your damage is poison, so it's almost like a 25% damage increase, right? I'd say maybe like an 18% damage increase overall. So the trait is really good. And yeah, because of that, I can't take Wilderness Knowledge, which means I'm losing a lot of Condi Cleanse. So my build can't really survive without having that Condi Cleanse. Now I try to get some Condi Cleanse here by using Cleansing and Purging on my Shortbow, and I use Escape, but I would use that anyways on my Sword Dagger. And then I also use Energy because you kind of use Sword Dagger as your kiting weapon, so you generally want to be able to move and disengage, so that's why Escape is really good. And Energy as well, because you can dodge the next thing and control when you want that dodge sometimes. So yeah, power and condition is very good, so Sage's is just a very strong amulet. And there's also a little bit of Fury on this build and crit chance from the skirmishing line, so you can kind of crit and have like power and precision at the same time with a condition amulet, so it's kind of like Wizards in a way. But yeah, it's pretty nice. The build does quite a bit of damage. So let's go over a little bit more of the traits. So as normal, Wilderness Survival, but instead of taking Lesser Muddy Terrain, while I think this is still a really good trait because the slow is very good for 1v1s because you just put that on node, especially with the Healing Spring. I think that Oakheart Salve can be really good too because it helps you maintain your regen uptime. And if you think about it, if you're going against a Condi build, you're going to pretty much proc this trait off cooldown, right? It's a 10-second ICD, and it's a 5-second duration regen that heals for like 1k. And that's pretty good sustain. Now obviously you do have Healing Spring, but you don't want to be using Healing Spring instantly because then that's it's gonna overheal you. So you do want to have the Oakheart Salve to kind of give you more of like a permanent regen uptime in a way. And the damage reduction while you have regen is nice too because when you go against power classes, you want the prot and you want a little bit more damage reduction too. So next you have on dodge, you gain protection. You have a little bit of vigor in this build. You have natural vigor and you have vigor on Unstoppable Union. You have an energy sigil. So you do want to be dodging to get the vigor sometimes, but you do not want to necessarily just spam your dodges out there like most rangers do just to get their protection uptime, because then, while you know it is really worth it to get rugged growth because it heals you for 400 every time you dodge, right? Because 2 seconds, every second is 200 healing. It's pretty good, but you also get protection from other sources, like going into beast form with Unstoppable Union, and also Protect Me. So yeah, you want to use your dodges for dodging, but you do get a lot of value from dodging because of protection and rugged growth. Also, I take ambidexterity. You just gain a lot of condition damage while wielding a torch or a dagger. Since I have sword dagger, when I have that on, I have 1400 condition damage, which is pretty good for using kind of a, you know, it's not too aggressive of a setup here. So yeah, it is pretty good damage, and I still get a little bit when I'm in Shortbow here, so that's nice. And the reason why I don't take Refined Toxins, even though I'm using a poison-centric build, is because the cooldown of this trait is kind of too high. It's more of like, if you don't already have poison in your build, this is nice. This trait is nice to have because it puts poison on them for you to get the damage reduction, right? This trait is more for the healing reduction. But since I already have tons of poison, I don't really need like that little bit much more poison because you know, I already have the healing reduction effect. So I like ambidexterity to make all my poison do more damage. So yeah, in a way, this just makes you do more damage than this. And I've already got the healing reduction. So yeah, it's just a better trait overall. And it makes your dagger skills on less cooldown. You're going to see here I have also sword trait in skirmishing. So my sword and my dagger skills are reduced by 20%. So in the sword dagger weapon set, you can spam quite a bit, and that's really nice because you have poison on 2 of these, and then there's some bleeding here. But yeah, there's a lot of damage you can get from this weapon set, while it's also useful for doing like disengaging and like surviving, because there's a lot of evades. There's 2 evades on this weapon set, so, and they're low cooldown especially. So yeah, that's pretty much the reasons for all these traits. Poison Master also not only does it give you a damage increase on your poison ticks, but it also gives you an effect when you use a beast ability. So you have 2 beast abilities. One is just pressing F2 with your pet, and what that'll do is it'll, you know, your pet will do its normal F2 attack, and then it should do a poison. Yeah, I wasn't in combat, so it didn't get it. It's only in combat that you'll get it. So my pet didn't do it, but it's on a 0-second cooldown. So what you can do is you can do it with your pet's F2, and then you can go into beast form and use your F3. That's also a beast skill. And now because I'm merged with my pet, I gain it, and then my next attack will do 2 stacks of poison for 8 seconds. And those aren't like amazing damage, but it's kind of decent. You know, they're, you know, somewhat high cooldown, the beast abilities, but it's kind of nice. So as you can see here, my beast will do poison to the target now because it's in combat. But yeah, overall, that's pretty much why you take those traits. So in skirmishing, I take Trapper's Expertise. I have 2 traps, so Healing Spring and Viper's Nest. Viper's Nest is just more poison. Poison is something that you want, so it's just really good. And having reduction on these 2 skills is pretty good because your heal skills pretty valuable. These 2 aren't really that good. The Vigor is nice, but you can get some from Unstoppable Union already. And you just gain Fury and Swiftness from weapon swapping. I already talked about Strider's Defense. The Quickness is kind of irrelevant. You only take this for the sword reduction. And Hidden Barbs, you're not really doing that much bleeding. You do have Shortbow and Dagger 5, but most of your damage is really from poison. So this trait, while it looks like it's really good, it's only a small percentage of your damage that it's increasing. While it's a lot, it's like, you know, maybe 5% of your damage is bleeding maybe, so it's kind of like a 2% damage increase. Whereas this gives you a lot more utility. So and also, you know, it gives you more poison, right? Because you know, lesser cooldown on the poison abilities. So it actually might even do more damage in some cases. But yeah. Next is Quick Draw. So this trait is just really insane, and I love it. It's so much fun. It allows you to, whenever you swap weapons, and because you're not druid, it kind of makes this a lot more simple. Whenever you weapon swap, you gain a buff for 5 seconds, and your next weapon skill is reduced in cooldown by 66 seconds. So my sword dagger skills are already very low cooldown, so they can often be kind of like instant to recharge. So I'll show you here how quick draw really works with the sword kit. So I swap into sword, and I have two choices, right? I can go for damage or I can go for utility. So right here, I'll go for utility, and I'll use the sword leap, and then the sword evade right after. It's already off cooldown. I use it again. And, you know, I could use the stalker strike as well. That's my big damage skill in the sword dagger kit, because it can do 5 stacks of poison. And if I reduce that by 66%, that would be like a 4 to 5 second cooldown. So yeah, that's pretty high damage for, you know, such a good skill, or such a low cooldown skill. And yeah, you can do the same with Shortbow. So when you swap into Shortbow, you can decide whether you want to do damage or utility. So usually I use the 2 skill, because that does the poison, and if you want to shotgun that right in their face, and it's already off cooldown, I can do it again. And yeah, that's just really good damage there, because it gives you, you know, a decent power coefficient, and it also gives you like 5 stacks of poison. And obviously from behind, Shortbow skills are usually better, but you can also choose to use quick shot, which is an evade and a pretty good movement skill. So if you're like kiting, you can choose to use quick shot first, and that'll give you that back sooner, and then you can use it again. I usually don't use it on concussion shot, even though you'll get the most value there, because the CC wall is very good. It's not, you know, you're not getting that much value, because you're going to swap out of the weapon set before you get the cooldown off anyways. So yeah, that's pretty much the reason you take quick draw. It's just really good. And in Soulbeast, you have Unstoppable Union, so this is pretty good because, as I said before, Condi Cleanse isn't really amazing on this build. So removing all those conditions when I go into Beast mode is very useful. Gaining Protection and Vigor is just insane as well, because like if you're CC'd, for example, by, say, I don't know, a Revenant, and you're getting, you know, hard pressured by them while you're CC'd, even if you don't have a stun break off cooldown, you can give yourself protection and kind of survive. So that's kind of nice. You deal more damage while you have Fury. That's not that important because it's only power damage. Predator's Cunning. So this is also some more poison synergy with the build. While it's not amazing, it's just nice because every time you apply poison, you lifesteal. And if your skill does, you know, 5 stacks of poison, it'll proc this 5 times. So generally the application of poison is better than the duration of poison with this build because of this, and also because there's not really that many cover condis with the build. So a lot of times the build kind of gets countered by cleanse, but you still get a decent amount of burst because of it, right? And that's kind of why I don't run Thorn Runes or Venom Sigils on this build, because I don't really need more duration, because if they let the, you know, poison run its course, they're going to take a lot of damage no matter what. And if they cleanse it, well, then it doesn't matter what my duration is anyways. So yeah, that's kind of nice. There's a lot of, you know, big poisons here. So like Viper's Nest is 3 stacks of poison per tick. This is 5. I get 2 stacks from Poison Master. I get 5 if they're crippled or, you know, any kind of movement impairing condition on them. So I'll get 5 here, and then I'll get 2 from the second part of Monarch's Leap, Serpent Strike. So yeah, you're oftentimes, when you're giving the enemy poison, you're giving them multiple stacks of poison, and that adds to your survivability, so it's kind of nice. So yeah, lastly we have well, Twice as Vicious gives you a little bit more condition damage as well when you CC, but that's only really relevant for your concussion shot because it's only for disables. So that is the last trait is a leader of the pack. So I do have one stance here. Doliac Stance gives you stability, and it makes you immune to all the conditions that movement impair you. So that's pretty nice, and it's a stun break. It's just a really good skill, but it's a really long cooldown, so you have to be a little bit careful about when you use it, because yeah, it's a really long cooldown. But what's really good is using it in a team fight, because it also gives minus 33% incoming condition damage and power damage. So if you use this on your whole team in a team fight, it is really strong. But you have to kind of use it, as I said, more sparingly, because for your team, it only lasts 3 seconds, right? Or maybe even less. I'm not sure how exactly the leader of the pack works. Let's see here. 1, 2, 3. I think it's about 3 seconds for your team. So yeah, in a team fight, it's pretty good, but it has to it has to be kind of timed pretty well. But other than that, it's pretty good build, I would say. It does a lot of damage in team fights, because if you put Viper's Nest on the middle of the node, it does insane damage. If people can't really pay attention to that, like in a 1v1 where they can play around that. It's also very good in 1v1 though, because it contests the node. And Healing Spring, I take that because of the regen mostly, but the Condi Cleanse is also very good because I don't have much Condi Cleanse. But also, the build has a lot of leaps in it. So I'm using Owl and Sword. So if I put down Healing Spring, I can do a leap through it. It's not going to proc because I don't have low HP, but you can do your Sword 2 to leap through it and do a heal blast or a heal leap finisher, and your F1 is also a leap finisher, and yeah, you can heal up quite a bit from that and gain a lot of sustain. So that's really nice. I take Protect Me because that is just a really strong skill right now. It gives you 4,000 barrier, 4 seconds of protection, and a stun break for your allies. Protection gives you healing, but one thing you have to kind of remember is there's a bug at the moment for Soulbeast. So if you use Protect Me while in beast form, it doesn't give you anything except the protection, I think, and the stun break. So it won't give you the barrier. So yeah, you want to use Protect Me while not in beast form, because you'll gain a 4,000 barrier, which is really nice. And lastly, I take Entangle because it's just kind of nice to immobilize people. Sometimes you can, Viper's Nest them if you get a really good immob on them and do tons of damage. There's not really much else you can take other than Strength of the Pack, or if you really want, One Wolf Pack for like just giving it to your allies, because you're not really doing that much power damage. So yeah, that's pretty much the build. I take Owl and Seamoth. With Soulbeast, you can only use one pet while in combat, so I like Owl because it gives you that mobility, and you can give out some swiftness to your allies. You have plenty of swiftness yourself already. And the Spiritual Reprieve is really good because it gives you resistance, which is really nice for builds that don't have that much Condi Cleanse, as I said before. And it's a 5,000 healing, so it's just really insane in team fights. You can give your team Doliac Stance and then cast Spiritual Reprieve without being interrupted in like the middle of a team fight, while you also cast down your traps. It's just really high value. So yeah, that's really good. But I take Seamoth as the swap because sometimes there are like power matchups that you have to fight, and the Seamoth is really good for those because it gives you a stun break and an endure pain. So that's really good, and it gives you a little bit of a knockdown here. Well, not a little bit. That's a large knockdown. That's a 3-second knockdown, which you can, combo a lot with your Viper's Nest and shotgunning your poison volley into it. So that's good too. You just got to decide when you think you want that instead of the Owl, but usually you're using the Owl. And yeah, that's pretty much the build. So the role of this build is to take 1v1s, but there's also a decent amount of damage on the build, so you can go to team fights if you want. My team has plenty of 1v1ers, so that's a viable option for me, but I instead decided to go far. This is an automated tournament on EU, so I have around like 200 ping right now, And this is a 1v1 versus Floody, who is a very experienced, engineer player. So I'm going to talk about the matchup a little bit here, but in general, yeah, I'm going to probably lose this because, I'm not really that skilled on this class or on this build. I just picked this up. And yeah, basically, so how this matchup kind of works is Hollows, when they leave Hollow Forge, they cleanse 2 conditions. So I want to generally do damage to them when they're in Sword Shield, not when they're in the Hollow Forge, because they can just cleanse my poison. I don't have that many Condi covers, right? Because this build, it focuses on poison and it doesn't really have that much else. It's more of like a sustaining build that can deal damage, not really like a Necromancer or a Mesmer where it's trying to like get the kills with cover Condis a lot, or like a Thief. So generally, I'm not going to do insane damage there. As you can see here, I get +1, and I have to leave Beast mode to use Protect Me, or I won't get the barrier. So that's a little bit scary, but maybe that's not relevant to you if the bug gets fixed. But anyways, I survived the 1v2, and I notice on the map that my engineer is coming in now, so I have to play a little bit more aggressively because I don't want to waste their time, even though it is kind of dangerous for me to be here. I do have all my dodges, and I'm not using them. I do have 200 ping, so my mechanics are probably pretty, garbage. They get chased off the node, and we have the decap, and I should just play aggressively here to get the kill, depending on whether my teammate's gonna play with me. I do land a really nice stun into my Viper's Nest, but they get a stun break and cleanse, so I don't really get too much off of this +1, but at least I get the decap and it kind of resets it, so it's kind of even. And obviously I'm probably going to lose the node sooner than I'm going to gain it, because Mortar Kit is just kind of really strong, so I want to let my pet kind of tank that, and I'll just kite off the node, let him get the cap, and maybe just go for the kill if I can. So yeah, the F1 in Siamoth also I think gives bleeding, so that's actually not that bad for this build, a Condi build, and so that's kind of nice. I've got the NG to half health here, and I want to finish them off before they can do much else, but they've basically just instantly cleansed my my poison volley there. So I'm kind of hurting here, and I can't really pressure them on the node enough to get my heal trap on the node. So I have to be really careful there. I do land my healing combo there with the sword leap, so that's pretty nice, but I do get, I eat a bunch of CC because of ping, and I have to kite off basically. But I do kind of think that he's low, so I go back in to be aggressive. I land Entangle, but they go into Resistance rune with their elite there, so we don't get that kill with that Entangle, so that's unfortunate. I still have both my dodges here, so I probably just should double dodge just to get my protection up time. And yeah, I'm getting +1 by a nade NG now, so I'm gonna die. And yeah, so that's kind of unfortunate. I was losing the 1v1, so that allowed them to get the kill there because I was so pressured. And here I'm going to, well, my team is winning the map right now, so that's kind of good. But now I want to consider not going far, because now I have to start that 1v1 all over again. I was kind of close to winning it, even though I was really, closer to losing it than I was to winning it. But now that the 1v1 has basically been reset because I died, I don't want to go too far, because now I'm giving him value for him standing on the node. So I'm going to look to rotate somewhere else on the map and try to create kills for my team. And they are kind of like getting killed, so I definitely don't want to be wasting time there. I want to create a different situation for my team on the map. And that's an important thing that 1v1ers have to notice, is that they don't just go far all the time. Sometimes they need to help their team. And here what I try to do is I try to juke and pretend like I'm going to far, and then I go for mid. I do land a really nice concussion shot there, but it's not going to be a stun because it's from the front. So I'm actually not going to get this decap either, even though I did get quite a decent bit of damage here. and there's the resistance, so now I'm not going to be able to get the kill. So at this point I see that I can't get the kill, so I want to go to far and kind of create a different rotation, see if I can get a decap there. My team has already gotten the decap there, so I do want to kind of just keep splitting their team. Getting chased by a bunch of hollows here. You guys didn't see it, but their whole team is basically just hollows. So I'm going to be now fighting this hollow on mid, and what I'm going to do is actually attempt to take this 1v1, because maybe they're worse at NG, maybe they're running a different build, maybe they're not running resistance build, so they don't have a build that counters me as much. So I'm going to attempt to take this 1v1 instead. I see they do have resistance rune now, so yeah, this is probably not a good 1v1 to take, but there's still a chance that I win. And we do have the map, so me splitting their team is not that bad now. So there's always a chance that I can get +1 as well, before they get a +1. I'm winning the 1v1 pretty hard, so yeah, this +1 kind of happens instantly and allows me to cap the node. So I'm just bleeding them while I'm capping the node. That's really important, because I see that there's no real potential for the enemy to come here and res, so I don't need them to respawn any sooner while I cap this. I do see that my teammates are pinging on the map, basically saying that there's an NG coming around the back, so it's really important there that I noticed that, and I cleaved out the other NG quickly so that I could focus on the person that's rotating into me. So I'm going to put down my traps on the node here. I actually heal my thief here, which is really important, because even though I can't use it for myself now because I was full HP, healing my thief allows them to be more aggressive, because the kind of like the counter to thief is counter pressure, right? Because they're so squishy, and as you can see, they're really low here. So being able to heal my teammates who are +1ing me is really good, because especially when it's a thief, it allows them to play more aggressively. So that's really good there. The beast ability, it's a really huge chunk. It's 5k, so it's really nice that I can do that. And now I'm going to rotate into far. So I see we do own 2 nodes on the map, and there's not really much I can do to decap far because there's more than one person there. So I'm just going to try to pressure them as I go into mid and just hold mid. Now that I own a node for once, I'm going to play a little bit more defensively, so I'll probably stick to the sword kit a little bit more. And here they're in stealth, so I'm just kind of trying to not stand on the node until they stand on it, because they're not contesting it, so there's no reason for me to give up my positioning, but still be in range to stand on the node as soon as they come out of stealth. And I get the kill there with quite a bit of poison application and power damage as well. So yeah, I get this kill, and I see that their NG is kind of like rotating towards our home node. I want to put down some traps on mid and just prepare for anyone to come to me, because if I go to home, then I'm stuck in a team fight and I leave mid open to their engineer to push that. So I can't really leave mid, and I can't really push into far because they have an NG there that I'll lose the matchup to. Now I am getting pushed by this NG now, but I don't really need to win it. I just need to hold it as my node. So I'm playing very safely and just trying to pressure as much as I can without taking any damage, because giving them pressure in the 1v1 is also important, because if I just do nothing and try to only survive, then they'll just do their normal DPS rotation on me. So I need to kind of give some kind of threat to them so that they have to dodge, because if they're dodging, then they're not doing damage. But I take enough damage and I'm getting plussed, so I have to get out of there, and I'm too low to even try to contest the node, so I leave. I'm pretty okay here. They can't really kill me, so I go back into mid, I think. Or yeah, I actually go into far, because if I go into mid, that's a node that they own, but if I go into far, that's a node that they don't own yet. So maybe I can contest that and force more rotations towards me, which can give my team an advantage on the map. I do give up the node anyways, but my team is here, so it's fine. Yeah, so my teammate is chasing the other hollow off node, But I kind of want to fight on node because that's where a lot of my damage can happen, and my pet can also do stuff. So I target the hollow that's standing on node just because I want to force whoever's on it to get off, just so we can get the decap and then we can focus on kills. But I think we're 2v3 here, so I have to be very careful. I use my leap to get back on the node, and I think I get a decap here, so that's very nice. However, I am really low, and I'm going to die for that because this is a nades NG, so they do a lot of damage. But we do get the decap because I kind of made that greedy kind of push there to stay in the 1v2 instead of kite out. But yeah, I probably should have survived there instead, because now my team is going to be in a disadvantageous position on the map. Whereas before, I was giving them an advantageous position because I was holding 2 players. And now, I'm not holding them, so we're going to kind of lose the map again. Like I said, this is kind of, I'm not really a Soulbeast player, and I just created this build not too long ago. So I'm not really making the best plays here, but you see the potential. It has a lot of mobility, and right now I'm going to use that mobility to try to kind of play like a thief and create rotations around the map. I see my thief is pinging far because he wants to plus me at far, but I think that mid is probably a safer play. But yeah, I decided to go back into far, I'm pretty sure, because there's a lot of them there, and our NG decides to not go into mid anyways. So we're kind of out rotating them here, and we have home. So all we need to do to win this game is kind of just contest far. So I try to stand on the node, prevent them from getting a full cap, and just pressure whoever we're targeting. I do have my heal thing on mid, so I do want to stay there, but I'm getting tornadoed, and that's kind of dangerous. So I just dodge a couple times, and I get knocked out, and probably going to survive anyways because I have all my mobility still. And I'm getting my heal up very soon. And as you can see here, we're winning the game pretty soon. So all I need to do is survive. I don't need to contest anything. I just need to survive. Because if we get decapped somewhere and I die, then there's nothing I can do. But if we get decapped and I survive, then I still have presence on the map, which can allow them to regain the node at home, or I can potentially gain a node as well. So yeah, just not dying here is definitely the play. So yeah, if you like this kind of build video, give it a thumbs up. If you want more of these kinds of videos, subscribe. And also leave a comment down below if you think this build is interesting. I know that the Soulbeast current meta, or just Ranger current meta, is just using wilderness survival with wilderness knowledge and just longbow, because that's kind of it's a really broken weapon. But honestly, I think that is kind of a boring weapon set, the greatsword longbow, and it's a little bit overused. So this is kind of nice and new. So what do you think about it?